Welcome to Washington Today on C-SPAN Radio for Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. House Republicans passed the budget reconciliation, one big, beautiful bill, tax cuts and spending cuts, by one vote after an all-night debate and daybreak vote. We'll get reaction from House Republican and Democratic leaders, plus Republicans who had called for last-minute changes in exchange for their yes votes, and the White House. FBI investigating as an act of terror the shooting death of two Israeli embassy staffers outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. by a man who shouted, "Free, free Palestine." Make America Healthy Again, or MAHA. Its commission releasing a report on what is causing chronic disease, especially in children. The culprits include ultra-processed foods, environmental chemicals, and over-medicalization. Democrats criticizing President Trump's dinner tonight with top investors in his memecoin. And NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, predicting a 60% chance of an above-average hurricane season, which starts June 1st. Story from Roll Call. House Republicans passed their big, beautiful reconciliation bill early Thursday morning, sending to the Senate a filibuster-proof package that would deliver the major elements of President Donald Trump's legislative agenda, from tax cuts and border security to lifting the nation's borrowing limit. The 215 to 214 vote capped the weeks of grueling negotiations behind the scenes between House leaders and warring factions of the Republican conference. That was from Roll Call. The debate and voting went on all night. Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana, led a House Republican news conference after final passage about 7 a.m. Eastern.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. This is a big day. We said on the House floor, it's finally morning in America again. The media and the Democrats have consistently dismissed any possibility that House Republicans could get this done. They did not believe that we could succeed in our mission to enact President Trump's America First agenda. But this was a big one, and once again, they have been proven wrong. Today, the House has passed generational, truly nation-shaping legislation to reduce spending and permanently lower taxes for families and job creators, secure the border, unleash American energy dominance, restore peace through strength, and make government work more efficiently and effectively for all Americans. House Democrats voted against all of that. So everything that I just said, they voted the opposite. Clearly proves they must want the largest tax increase in U.S. history on the American citizens. They must want open borders. They've proven that over and over. They must want Medicaid for illegal immigrants. We look forward to the Senate's timely consideration of this once-in-a-generation legislation. We stand ready to continue our work together to deliver on the one big, beautiful bill, as President Trump named it himself. We're going to send that to his desk. We're going to get it there by Independence Day on July 4th, and we are going to celebrate a new golden age in America.
House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana, at a news conference early this morning after passage of the budget reconciliation bill. Returning to the Roll Call article and some paragraphs about how they got enough Republicans to vote for it. While moderates in high-tax states sought additional tax relief, hardcore conservatives sought deeper cuts to federal spending, particularly on Medicaid, and a faster repeal on clean energy tax credits they dubbed the Green New Scam. A 42-page manager's amendment released just hours before the final vote gave both factions enough of what they wanted to turn undecided and dissenting lawmakers into supporters of the bill. While more than a dozen Republicans had threatened to vote down the bill in recent weeks, almost all agreed to support the final version of the sweeping package. That was from Roll Call. Congressman Mike Lawler of New York was one of the members looking for a larger SALT deduction for personal income tax, state and local tax deduction, and he explained his yes vote during the House floor debate.
Mr. Speaker, when I ran for Congress, I said I would never support a tax bill that did not adequately lift the cap on SALT. This bill does that. It increases the cap on SALT by 300%. And I would remind my Democratic colleagues, when they had full control in Washington, they lifted the cap on SALT by exactly $0. Zilch, zip, nada. Not $1 of increase in tax relief for hardworking New Yorkers. So to all my New York colleagues on the other side of the aisle, before you speak out and say that you don't support a 300% increase on the cap on SALT, the fact is that this bill adequately adequately addresses the cap on salt and provides tax relief to hardworking middle-class families.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
I had not intended to rebut, Mr. Speaker. However, our tax bill had an $80,000 cap on salt, and it passed the House of Representatives.
Gentleman.
I reserve my time.
It's Congressman Richard Neal, Democrat from Massachusetts, responding to Congressman Mike Lawler, Republican of New York, on the House floor in the middle of the night during the debate on the budget reconciliation bill. The bill passed the House by one vote just as the sun was coming up. Congressman Chip Roy of Texas was one of the House Republicans seeking more spending cuts, and he did an interview this morning on CNBC.
I just want to go back to where you were, 36 hours ago versus where you are this morning. Mm-hmm. On Tuesday evening, you were saying that you hadn't decided what you were doing. You said, we're in a better spot than we were a week ago. We're in a better spot than we were 48 hours ago, but there's still a lot of things we're ironing out. So what got ironed out to get you to yes?
Well, thanks for having me on. I mean, yeah, it was great to get the bill done. And by the way, I agree with my friend Warren Davidson, who makes very good points that there are far too much, there's too much spending and too many deficits in the near term, in the front load, and too much savings in the back load. He's correct. That's one of the things that I think the Senate ought to address. But we moved the needle a lot in the last 72 hours. We got, pretty firm commitments yesterday from the White House in the form of legislative language to help the non-expansion states under Obamacare get some additional support to try to prevent the pressure on Texas and Tennessee and Florida to expand. I think that's bad for the country. So we got 110% plus up on the state-directed payments, which is important. We also got some commitments out of the White House to make some other changes that they might be taking some actions on at the executive level that we'll see, I think, in the coming weeks. And we were importantly able to make sure the Inflation Reduction Act had stringent requirements on construction. So within 60 days of enactment, if you're not constructing, you're not going to get subsidies, and at the back end on in-service. What that means is, in short speak, it tightens down the number of subsidies that could possibly go to any more of these plussed up wind and solar projects, which are making the grid less reliable. So those were all really big, important wins for us. I didn't get everything I wanted. I think there's some other stuff that I hope the Senate might address, both on deficits and on the Medicaid issue with all of the ridiculousness of the FMAP and provider tax games they play. That's a money laundering scheme that I think we can still improve. But we got a lot of work to do still in the Senate and to bounce back to the House, as Emily was talking about.
Congressman Chip Roy, Republican of Texas, interviewed on CNBC this morning. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act passed 215 to 214. Two Republicans voted no. Thomas Massey of Kentucky, who wrote on X, "If we are serious, we'd be cutting spending now instead of promising to cut spending years from now." And Warren Davidson of Ohio wrote on X, "While I love many things in the bill, promising someone else will cut spending in the future does not cut spending. Deficits do matter, and this bill grows them now." Congressman Andy Harris, Republican of Maryland, chair of the Freedom Caucus, voted present, and two Republicans missed the vote, David Schweikert of Arizona and Andrew Garbarino of New York. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from New York, explained during the House floor debate why no Democrat supported this bill.
This is one big, ugly bill that House Republicans are trying to jam down the throats of the American people under the cover of darkness. This legislation will not make life better for the American people. The GOP tax scam represents an assault on the economy, an assault on health care, an assault on nutritional assistance, an assault on tax fairness, and an assault on fiscal responsibility. There are more than 100 other reasons to vote against this one big, ugly bill that can be found by reading this more than 1,000-page document. Those reasons are too numerous to mention, but this legislation also undermines reproductive freedom, undermines the progress that we have made in combating the climate crisis, undermines gun safety, undermines the rule of law and the independence of the federal judiciary. It even undermines the ability of hard-working and law-abiding immigrant families to provide remittances to their loved ones who may just happen to live abroad. There are more than 100 different reasons to vote against the GOP tax scam. And in the days and the weeks and the months to come, all of those reasons will be exposed for the American people in each and every one of your districts. But this bill represents a failed promise. Last year, Donald Trump and House Republicans spent all of their time talking about their promise to lower the high cost of living in the United States of America. In fact, Donald Trump and Republicans promised that costs would go down on day one. We're now more than 120 days past the inauguration. Costs aren't going down, they're going up. Inflation is out of control. Insurance rates remain stubbornly high. Our Moody's rating, our credit rating, has been downgraded. And you've got people losing confidence in this economy. Republicans are crashing this economy in real time and driving us toward a recession.
The House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from New York, on the House floor during the debate, which went all night on the budget reconciliation bill. After the House passed the bill early this morning by one vote, President Donald Trump writing a long Truth Social post that begins, "The one big, beautiful bill has passed the House of Representatives. This is arguably the most significant piece of legislation that will ever be signed in the history of our country." And later in the day, the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt spoke to reporters.
Last night, Republicans in the House passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the most significant piece of legislation in years. There were a lot of good faith negotiations in the Republican conference leading up to the final passage, but as always, President Trump came in at the end to bring all sides together and get this deal done. This One Big Beautiful Bill will implement President Trump's Make America Great Again agenda by delivering the largest tax cut in American history for middle-class families, the working class, and small businesses. The One Big Beautiful Bill fulfills President Trump's promises of no tax on tips, which was applauded today by the CEO of Uber, no tax on overtime, a Made in America auto tax break, Trump savings accounts for newborn babies, and substantial tax cuts for our amazing seniors' Social Security benefits. The One Big Beautiful Bill will permanently secure the border by delivering the largest border security investment in history, funding at least 1 million annual removals of illegal aliens to carry out the largest deportation campaign ever, finishing the Trump border wall, and giving pay raises and bonuses for our incredible ICE and Border Patrol agents. The One Big Beautiful Bill protects the Medicaid program and its benefits for the most vulnerable Americans that the program was designed for, by kicking off 1.4 million illegal aliens from receiving benefits and implementing common sense work requirements for able-bodied Americans. The One Big Beautiful Bill also helps get our fiscal house in order by carrying out the largest deficit reduction in nearly 30 years with $1.6 trillion in mandatory savings. Every single Democrat in the House of Representatives who voted against all of these common sense and massively popular policies. The Democrat Party has never been more radical and out of touch with the needs of the American people. The One Big Beautiful Bill is the final missing piece toward ushering the golden age of America. The Senate should pass this as quickly as possible and send it to President Trump's desk for a final signature.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt opening up a White House news conference. Washington Post has an article on what happens next. The Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican of South Dakota, and Senate Finance Committee Chairman Mike Crapo, Republican of Idaho, have been working for months with the House Republicans who drafted the bill, but they still expect to make changes. Thune told reporters Wednesday, "When it comes over here, I think Speaker Johnson would like to see as little change to the product as possible because they've cobbled together a delicate balance over there. Still, the Senate will have its imprint on it," Thune added. The article says Republicans have set a July 4th deadline for both chambers to pass the bill and work out any differences to get it to President Trump's desk. But the true deadline might be the tough-to-determine date when the federal government hits the borrowing limit. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has urged Congress to raise the debt limit, which Republicans included in the bill, by mid-July. Reporting from The Washington Post. Wall Street today, the Dow down 1, NASDAQ up 53, and S&P down 2. The Senate on Thursday, writes CBS News, voted to revoke 3 vehicle emissions waivers in California, a controversial move that the chamber's parliamentarian says Republican lawmakers may not have the right to do. The vote was 51-44, with Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan joining the Republicans in voting in favor of revoking the waivers. Ahead of the vote, the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called it the nuclear option. The 3 waivers the Senate revoked set stricter vehicle emission standards than federal regulations. 2 waivers relate to reducing tailpipe emissions from medium and heavy-duty vehicles, as well as limiting smog pollution from trucks. The last is what's frequently called California's EV mandate, a rule that aims to phase out gas-powered cars and require all new vehicle sales in California be zero emissions by 2025, reporting from CBS News. This is Washington Today. From the Daily Wire, FBI Director Kash Patel called the Wednesday night killings of Israeli embassy staffers Yaron Vlashinsky, 30 years old, and Sarah Milgram, 26 years old, an act of terror and vowed to pursue justice with the full weight of federal law enforcement. Vlashinsky and Milgram, who were about to be engaged to be married, were gunned down outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C., which was hosting a young diplomat's reception for young Jewish professionals. The suspect detained following the killings was identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez, a Chicago resident with far-left views who reportedly put on a keffiyeh and shouted "Free Palestine" after fatally shooting the couple. That was from the Daily Wire. Attorney General Pam Bondi spoke to reporters on the street near the museum.
We have to keep everyone safe, and that is the job right now of the Metropolitan Police, Mayor Bowser, Janine Pirro. We were all out here all night long. Everyone is working together as a team. FBI, ATF, our U.S. Marshals are out here trying to protect everyone. But our Jewish community must feel safe. What we saw last night was disgusting. I saw a young man's body being taken away who was about to get engaged. He had an entire life in front of him, and that was taken away. The hate has got to stop, and it has to stop now. And this person will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. You all have to understand, I can't talk about the facts. I can't talk about anything else now. They are working tirelessly to make sure this investigation goes proper. It is. Everyone is working together. And that's what's going to happen now.
Can you talk about the threats? Is there an increased threat level?
You spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu.
I did.
What did you talk about?
I did. I spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu last night. I was with Ambassador Leiter, and Prime Minister Netanyahu called while I was with him. I spoke to him, and of course he was devastated. He was devastated, and it broke my heart to talk to Bibi last night. He was devastated, and I assured him we were looking into this. Of course, all of our investigators were working together, and I also spoke to President Trump multiple times, who was just heartbroken and devastated by this. And, you know, his first directive to us was make America safe again, and that's what we are going to do. There is no place for this hate in our country and in our world.
Attorney General Pam Bondi speaking to reporters on the street in Washington, D.C. outside the Capitol Jewish Museum. President Trump writing on Truth Social, "These horrible D.C. killings based obviously on anti-Semitism must end now. Hatred and radicalism have no place in the USA. Condolences to the families of the victims. So sad that such things as this can happen." Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, Democrat from Michigan, the only Palestinian American in Congress who has been very critical of Israel's actions during the war with Hamas, posting on X, "My heart breaks for the loved ones of the victims of last night's attack in D.C. Nobody deserves such terrible violence. Everybody in our communities deserve to live in safety and in peace." Both the Republican and Democratic Senate leaders condemning the shooting. Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, the minority leader, is the highest-ranking elected Jewish politician in U.S. history.
Last night, just a few blocks from here, at the Capitol Jewish Museum, the scourge of anti-Semitism reared its ugly head yet again in America. The sickening, cold-blooded murder of 2 Jewish staffers from the Israeli embassy, seems to be another horrific incident of anti-Semitism, which we all know is much too rampant in our society. Yaron Lashinsky, Sarah Milgram, may their memories be a blessing. Such a blatant and targeted act of anti-Semitism right here in the nation's capital should outrage everybody. A beautiful young couple about to be married, just starting their lives, gunned down seemingly because they were Jewish. Let this be a call to all of us. We must never allow the malicious poison of anti-Semitism to fester and flourish. While we still must learn more about this tragic incident, we do know that when anti-Semitism is rife in the air, all kinds of individuals cling to it and sometimes, unfortunately, act on it. This morning, I'm praying for those who were killed in this senseless act of violence, all those affected, and their families.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York, today on the Senate floor. The Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican of South Dakota, also spoke about the shooting.
Mr. President, before I begin, I need to mention the shooting that occurred last night outside an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C., held by the American Jewish Committee. From everything we know so far, it is appallingly clear that event attendees were deliberately targeted. And two young embassy employees, tragically, two employees on the verge of getting engaged and starting a life together, were murdered in the attack. I'm grateful that the suspect is already in custody and for the help the Capitol Police provided in responding to the attack, and I know that he will be swiftly prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But I suspect, Mr. President, that is little comfort right now to the many whose sense of safety has been shattered and who are worried that they will be targeted simply because they are Jewish or Israeli. My prayers today are with the families of the deceased, with event attendees, with the employees of the Israeli embassy, and with all the members of the Jewish community suffering in the wake of this attack. And to the Israeli and Jewish communities here in Washington, D.C., know that we stand with you.
The Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican from South Dakota, on the Senate floor. From CBS News, the man accused of killing two Israeli embassy staff members outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C., has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, murder of foreign officials, and other counts. The suspect has been identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago. He is also charged with causing the death of a person through the use of a firearm and discharge of a firearm during a crime of violence. He was expected to be in court Thursday, Justice Department source told CBS News. Several Jewish members of the U.S. House laid flowers and held a news conference outside the museum in Washington where the shooting happened. Brad Schneider is from Illinois.
There is a real fear. So as we gather here today, we are overwhelmed by emotions. Emotions of grief at the loss of two beautiful young people who were prepared to make a life together, heading to Israel to become engaged, to make a promise to each other for a future, united, and to have that future cut short last night. And instead, their families, rather than gathering under the huppah, will be gathering beside a grave, saying a Kaddish instead of 7 blessings. We have grief, we have fear, but we're not surprised at what happened, and we are not going to back down. The resolve of all of us standing here, the resolve of every American Jew, the resolve of Jews around the world, is that we will hold on to who we are with pride and defiance. We know our place is in this city, in this country, for us within the governing halls of the United States, and we will not let anyone tell us we don't belong. We are overwhelmed with the grief for two beautiful souls. But we must be inspired by their spirit and their example. They were here last night participating in a program about reaching out. That is who they are. That is how they will be remembered. We're here today to mark their murder, to express our sorrow. But we must stand to ensure their memory is always a blessing.
Congressman Brad Schneider, Democrat from Illinois, at a news conference with other House Democratic Jewish members outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. Story from Reuters. For Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the shooting of two young embassy staffers at a Jewish event in Washington was a horrific example of the anti-Semitism that has flared across the world since the Hamas-led attack on Israel. On October 7, 2023, Netanyahu branded the killings as a despicable act of hatred of anti-Semitism and drew an explicit link with the increasingly hostile climate facing Israel over the war in Gaza, which has ranged from campus protests to accusations of genocide at the International Court of Justice. The Prime Minister said in a statement, blood libels against Israel have a cost in blood and must be fought to the utmost, reporting from Reuters. The Israeli ambassador to the United States, Yechiel Leiter, spoke to reporters outside the museum in Washington.
The person who shot these two young people dead last night screamed, "Free, free Palestine." This is done in the name of a political agenda to eradicate the state of Israel. The state of Israel is now fighting a war on 7 fronts. This is the 8th front. The war to demonize, delegitimize, to eradicate the right of the state of Israel to exist. When people say Israel has a right to exist, I say, thank you very much. We're not looking for anybody's acknowledgement. Nobody says that Belgium has the right to exist. Nobody says that South Africa has the right to exist. Israel has a right to exist, a right that goes back over 3,000 years. Long before there was anything called Palestine as a geographic location, there was Israel, the people of Israel, and the land of Israel. We've come home, we plan to stay there, and we're not going to be intimidated by the violence of those screaming on behalf of Palestine. These were two young, beautiful people, Yaron and Sarah, planned to be engaged next week in Jerusalem. Yaron bought an engagement ring this week. He was taking his soon-to-be bride to meet his parents, who live just outside of Jerusalem. Their murder will not be in vain. People of Israel's embassy in Washington will continue to serve the people of Israel and to bridge the friendship, deepen the friendship between the American people and the people of Israel.
The Israeli ambassador to the United States, Yechiel Leiter, with reporters outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Democrat of Minnesota, one of only 2 Muslim women in Congress, and a strong advocate for Palestinian rights, writing on X, "I am appalled by the deadly shooting at the Capitol Jewish Museum last night. Holding the victims, their families, and loved ones in my thoughts and prayers. Violence should have no place in our country." And a couple of stories from Associated Press. The Trump administration revoked Harvard University's ability to enroll international students in its escalating battle with the Ivy League school, saying thousands of current students must transfer to other schools or leave the country. The Department of Homeland Security said the university allowed anti-American pro-terrorist agitators to assault Jewish students on campus and claimed without evidence that Harvard is coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party. And the other story from AP, a judge in California has blocked the Trump administration from terminating the legal status of international students nationwide, while a court case challenging previous terminations plays out. Washington Today continues in a moment.
The weekly podcast is a unique offering from C-SPAN. We record it right here in the C-SPAN radio studios in beautiful downtown Capitol Hill. In a town where extremes get so much attention, this isn't more extreme opinion, it's extreme history, connecting the old with the new. Hear what's happening right now against the backdrop of the history you know. So listen, follow, and enjoy the C-SPAN radio podcast, The Weekly. And have friends and family who love political history and even love C-SPAN's coverage of politics? Tell them about it too. Find C-SPAN's The Weekly wherever you get podcasts.
Welcome back to Washington Today, available as a podcast on the free C-SPAN Now mobile app and wherever you get your podcasts. A few more headlines. Associated Press writing, the Supreme Court on Thursday effectively ended a publicly funded Catholic charter school in Oklahoma, dividing 4-4. The outcome keeps in place an Oklahoma court decision that invalidated a vote by a state charter school board to approve the St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School, which would have been the nation's first religious charter school, but it leaves the issue unresolved nationally. And also from AP, President Trump will take part in a gathering in Calgary, Canada from June 15th to June 17th with G7 leaders from Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said. And First Lady Melania Trump has released an audiobook of her memoir with the narration from a voice created by AI. She says in a statement, "I am proud to be at the forefront of publishing's new frontier, the intersection of artificial intelligence, technology, and audio." CNN reports that poor diet, environmental toxins, unhealthy habits, and pharmaceuticals are contributing to a national rise in chronic disease, particularly among children. Top Trump officials said in a Thursday report that lays the groundwork for a Make America Healthy Again overhaul of government policy. The government panel is recommending that federal agencies reassess the nation's childhood vaccine schedule, scrutinize ultra-processed foods, and study pesticides widely used in commercial farming. Some of the reporting from CNN. The report comes from the MAHA Commission and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. joining other commission members with President Donald Trump at the White House.
4 months ago, I created the Presidential Commission to Make America Healthy Again, and today the commission officially delivers its first report on childhood health. Here are just some of the alarming findings, and they really are alarming. It's unbelievable, terrible. More than 40% of American children now have at least one chronic health condition. Since the 1970s, rates of childhood cancer have soared in many cases by nearly 50%, 50%. Well, in the 1960s, less than 5% of the children were obese. Now over 20% are obese. A few decades ago, 1 in 1, think of this one. This is, to me, the one that gets me every time, and it seems to be getting worse. Just a few decades ago, 1 in 10,000 children had autism. Today, it's 1 in 31. Last time I heard the number is 1 in 34, right? Now it's 1 in 31. There's something wrong, and we will not stop until we defeat the chronic disease epidemic in America. We're going to get it done. For the first time ever, this report examines some of the root causes that many believe are making our children sicker and our population sicker, I guess. It just doesn't stop with the children. It's our population also, such as the ultra-processed foods, over-medicalization and over-prescription and widespread exposure to potentially toxic chemicals. Unlike other administrations, we will not be silenced or intimidated by the corporate lobbyists or special interests, and I want this group to do what they have to do. We have to spell it out. In some cases, it won't be nice or it won't be pretty, but we have to do it.
President Donald Trump in the White House East Room with members of the MAHA Commission, Make America Healthy Again. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. also spoke about the report's findings.
This report is a call to action for common sense. We've relied too much on conflicted research, ignored common sense, or what some would call mother's intuition. It's common sense that ultra-processed, nutrient-poor food contributes to chronic disease. It's common sense that excessive screen time and isolation lead to anxiety and depression, especially in children. It's common sense that exercise and healthy food should come before prescriptions and surgery. It's common sense that not all calories are equal in nutritional value. It's common sense that over-medicating kids is dangerous. It's common sense that we can celebrate the innovations of modern life while also demanding fearless inquiry into ameliorating the negative effects of medication, agriculture, and environmental practices. It's common sense that research funded by corporations deserves more scrutiny than independent studies. I'm so proud of this cabinet, and particularly Secretary Rollins and Administrator Zeldin, who, again, I'll say it a third time, work late nights, early into the morning to make this happen, and to all the leadership from the White House staff, beginning with Stephen Miller and Heidi Overton, Dr. Heidi Overton, with Vince Haley. In getting us to the goal line we could not have done it without them. They helped us grapple with weighty issues and committed this administration to solving large, complex challenges like children's health. We're joined here by senators, advocates, governors who I have worked with, and CEOs who I know who are all ready to begin carrying out this mission. This is the beginning of a conversation, a national conversation that we are going to have with maturity, with nuance, for the first time in history, thanks to your leadership, President Trump.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. today at the White House on the release of the Make America Healthy Again, or MAHA, Commission report on chronic disease. About the commission, this from Axios. The Secretaries of Agriculture, Education, and Housing, as well as the Administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency and other federal officials, sit on the 14-member commission. The commission now has about 80 days to create a strategy for how the federal government should respond, per President Trump's original February order. Government advisors are meeting Thursday to decide if COVID-19 vaccines need updating to improve protection this fall and winter, writes Washington Times, even as a new Trump administration policy has thrown into question who may be eligible for a shot. It comes just 2 days after FDA leaders upended the prior U.S. policy of recommending annual COVID-19 boosters for all Americans aged 6 months and older. Instead, the FDA said routine approval of COVID-19 boosters will be limited to seniors and to younger people who are at high risk of severe infection. Manufacturers will need to do new studies to show whether seasonal shots still benefit healthy people younger than 65. That article from the Washington Times. The FDA Commissioner, Dr. Martin McCary, answered questions about the COVID-19 vaccine policy from Senator Jeanne Shaheen, a Democrat of New Hampshire, at today's Appropriations Subcommittee hearing.
In the last couple of days, there have been a lot of news reports about the COVID-19 vaccine. I would think that one of the real accomplishments of the first Trump administration was the development of the COVID-19 vaccine. I would think people would be very proud of that effort. And so I was surprised to hear about the FDA's announcement earlier this week that would limit access to COVID-19 boosters. And it seems like the announcement would take away people's ability to make that choice on their own by limiting it to only people 65 or at high risk. So can you help us understand why that decision was made and why people who may think that that booster would be helpful to them will no longer be available?
Happy to. It's been 4 to 5 years since we've had a randomized controlled trial, and so we don't know the right number of boosters that a healthy American should take. What is that number? Is it 2, like the MMR vaccine? Is it 2 or 3, like HPV or hepatitis B? Or is it 80? Do we believe in giving 80 mRNA shots to a healthy girl born today in her average lifespan of 80 years? Is that the right answer? That has been a theory, that the repeat booster strategy in healthy individuals is the correct evidence-based strategy, but there's been no data to support it. So we are doing our job to say that if we're going to approve a COVID vaccine for younger, healthy Americans, we'd like to see some clinical trial data, given that it's a much different population from 5 years ago. There's broad, ubiquitous population-based immunity, and there's also a different virus circulating, and this is a new vaccine formulation that creates a new protein in the body. Should we blindly rubber stamp a vaccine that creates a new protein in the body every year for the rest of our lives for the next 100 years? I don't think so. And so that's why we published in the New England Journal of Medicine this week a framework for sensible COVID vaccine booster regulation in the United States that uses an age-stratified approach. And really, honestly, we are catching up with the rest of the world. Some of the rest of the world has been laughing at us using this blind strategy. We're now switching to a scientific strategy. The UK only recommends COVID boosters in people 75 years of age and high risk. France, 80 years of age and high risk. I don't think we should be pushing this on healthy 6-year-old girls without any evidence every year for the rest of their lives. And that's why we've outlined this framework. And by the way, the vaccine manufacturers put out positive statements about the framework because I believe they like predictability.
Food and Drug Administration Commissioner Dr. Marty McCary, questioned by Senator Jeanne Shaheen, Democrat from New Hampshire, at an Appropriations Subcommittee hearing today. Fox News has an article. U.S. health officials knew about the risks of myocarditis from COVID-19 vaccines, but downplayed the concern and delayed informing the public about the risk of taking the jab, according to a new Senate report released by Senator Ron Johnson Wednesday. He chairs the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. From NPR, President Trump is hosting an exclusive dinner tonight at his Trump National Golf Club near Washington, D.C., with a unique guest list, 220 of the largest investors of his Trump memecoin, whose current or previous holdings of the cryptocurrency earn them a seat at the table. It's an event where the murky world of cryptocurrencies collides with questions of presidential ethics. That's how the NPR article put it. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt got a question about this at her news conference today.
Did anyone in the White House or in the White House counsel's office advise the president against holding this sweepstakes, whereby people who spent the most money on his Trump coin would then have access to the president at this dinner?
Again, the president has been asked about this. He has addressed this. I have also stated previously from this podium that the president is abiding by all conflict of interest laws that are applicable to the president. And I think everybody, the American public, believe it's absurd for anyone to insinuate that this president is profiting off of the presidency. This president was incredibly successful before giving it all up to serve our country publicly. And not only has he lost wealth, but he also almost lost his life. He has sacrificed a lot to be here, and to suggest otherwise is frankly completely absurd.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt at her news conference in the White House briefing room. On Capitol Hill, some House and Senate Democrats held a news conference on the president's dinner tonight for Trump meme coin top investors. Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat from Massachusetts, is the ranking member on the Banking Committee.
Just before his inauguration, Donald Trump launched a crypto meme coin, and he has since signed executive orders to boost the value of that coin. In just 3 months, he has already made hundreds of millions of dollars off that launch. Then Trump appointed a cast of industry insiders to run crypto policy: Howard Lutnick, Paul Atkins, and David Sachs, each of whom has extensive personal and financial ties to the industry, and each of whom is in a government position to boost crypto fortunes and Donald Trump's personal fortunes even more. Trump, number 3, disbanded the DOJ's crypto enforcement, effectively crippling enforcement of the current laws. The timing on this was particularly juicy. The unit was shut down just as Binance, a giant foreign crypto exchange that had pleaded guilty to criminal violations related to money laundering, was exploring a deal with the Trump family crypto venture. And one more. Trump's SEC quietly backed off enforcement actions and investigations against the crypto firms that poured millions into Donald Trump's inauguration. Tonight, though, is the topper. Tonight is the orgy of corruption. Tonight, Donald Trump will host a private, intimate dinner and a White House tour for the top buyers of his meme coin, many of whom remain anonymous. The American people have no idea who is buying access to the president and no idea what they are getting in return.
Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts, at a news conference on Capitol Hill with other House and Senate Democrats. CNBC had an article a couple of weeks ago about 764,000 wallets that purchased President Donald Trump's Trump meme coin have lost money on the investment, according to fresh data shared with CNBC by blockchain analytics firm Chainalysis. Most of the wallets that lost money held smaller amounts of the token, according to the firm's on-chain analysis. Crypto wallets are accounts that store the keys you need to access and use your cryptocurrency holdings. Chainalysis said that while around 2 million wallets have bought into the tokens, 58 wallets made more than $10 million apiece, totaling roughly $1.1 billion in gains. That was from CNBC. The influence in the Trump administration of billionaire Elon Musk, head of the Department of Government Efficiency, was a topic today at a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee hearing with witness Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer. Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, asked about the severe downsizing of the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs, which he says had been investigating Musk's company Tesla for alleged racial abuse of black employees.
And there was an open investigation relative to the abuse of black employees at this facility. That investigation is now closed. That seems like a really convenient win for Elon Musk. And so tell us what's going on here. How do you justify the closure of an agency that was supporting workers, protecting workers? And I'd love to know if you had had any conversations with Elon Musk or his representatives who were in your agency on behalf of DOJ relative to the closure of this specific agency.
Thank you, Senator. Well, first and foremost, our nation's non-discrimination laws continue to be fully enforced at the Department of Labor and anywhere else. On top of that, as you know, I will not be able to discuss this because it is under litigation now. So I cannot go into any other comments in regards to that, and that would be true for many things that the Department of Labor is being sued for. I cannot discuss.
Well, you can certainly discuss with this committee why you eliminated the agency. I mean, this is a legitimate matter for the Appropriations Committee. You can tell us why you eliminated the agency, and you can certainly answer a question as to whether you had any conversations with Elon Musk about the elimination of this agency, which was actively investigating one of his facilities.
I cannot discuss it as it's in litigation, but I have had Elon Musk gets no special treatment from the Department of Labor or from me.
Is it true that investigation into his facility, again, these are really outrageous allegations.
I have no reference to even that case. I have no conversation.
But you can confirm that it was closed.
I don't even know about that specific case. I would not be able to comment on that.
All right. Can you answer that question to the committee? Can you answer that for the record? I mean, if you don't know now, can you get the answer to that as to whether that specific investigation into
as it relates to OFCC,
at the Tesla facility was closed?
As it relates to OFCCP, I cannot comment because it is in litigation. I know nothing about that case.
Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer questioned by Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat of Connecticut, at today's Appropriations Subcommittee hearing. CNN writes the Department of Homeland Security is inserting more than a half dozen of its officials into key front office roles at the Federal Emergency Management Agency to effectively run the agency, according to multiple sources and an internal memo obtained by CNN. The major shakeup comes less than 2 weeks before the official start of hurricane season. The Homeland Security officials will replace several longtime FEMA leaders, marking an inflection point in the Trump administration's takeover of the Disaster Relief Agency. Reporting from CNN. And NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, putting out a press release that reads, NOAA's outlook for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, which goes from June 1st to November 30th, predicts a 30% chance of a near-normal season, a 60% chance of an above-normal season, and a 10% chance of a below-normal season. The agency is forecasting a range of 13 to 19 total named storms, winds of 39 miles per hour or higher. Of those, 6 to 10 are forecast to become hurricanes, winds of 74 miles per hour or higher, including 3 to 5 major hurricanes, categories 3, 4, or 5, with winds of 111 miles per hour or higher. NOAA has a 70% confidence in these ranges. That's the press release from NOAA. Laura Grimm, acting NOAA administrator, held a news conference at the Emergency Operations Center in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, on the release of this forecast.
As we approach the official start of the Atlantic hurricane season on June 1st, NOAA and the National Weather Service stand ready to serve the nation during and after and before the storms. Our vital role ensures public safety, it enhances national security, and promotes a robust American economy. That role includes NOAA's work in providing life-saving forecasts that ensure that people that are in harm's way will be given critical time to heed warnings. Throughout the hurricane season, forecasters with the National Weather Service will continue to issue timely and accurate forecasts for all expected hazards, from storm surge to high winds to tornadoes to inland flooding. Experts at NOAA's National Ocean Service stand ready to assist the Weather Service, providing critical disaster response and real-time storm surge information. They also provide information to ensure our waterways and our shipping lanes are accessible in the wake of a hurricane to quickly facilitate the flow of commerce. They deliver aerial imagery to ensure emergency responders and local decision makers have the information that they need to rapidly deploy the resources that are hit the hardest areas.
Acting NOAA Administrator Laura Grimm at a news conference at the Emergency Operations Center in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, on the release of the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season predictions. Again, 60% chance of an above normal season, 3 to 5 major hurricanes. Hurricane season starts June 1st. And she said that they picked that place to do this news conference because this year is the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina hitting New Orleans. Thanks for listening to Washington Today. Sign up for C-SPAN's evening newsletter word for word and get the stories making headlines in Washington emailed to you every day. Subscribe at cspan.org/connect. Have a good night.